Hello guys, and welcome back to TierSpec TV. I realize it's been a little while, but I can assure you I have not given up on the Defender rebuild, and the Jimny is still here as well, and that's had some mods since you last saw it. So there will be a video which we've already filmed, but will be released after this one, where we install some, well, a pretty exciting modification, I think you'll agree, for this. So I look forward to you all seeing that. And then there's other things I've got planned for the Jimny as well going into the future. But now that spring has finally sprung and the weather is nice and it's warm and dry and there's a big ball of fire up in the sky, which I haven't seen for many, many months, I can finally get back outside and continue working on this Defender. There's also been some other things which have slightly halted the progress of this rebuild. And that's all to do with the authorities and tax and stuff like that. Things I needed clarification on before I wanted to continue any further with this Defender. Because in Denmark, well, I should preface this by saying, as I think many people are aware, the Danish government loves taxes, and cars in Denmark, car ownership, is very expensive because of taxes, both because of the annual road tax you have to pay on every car and the tax on the purchase price of a new car. On top of those taxes, if you want to make changes to a vehicle, you are potentially liable to face tax as well. There's different categories of, sort of changes you can make to a vehicle before they say whether or not you have to be taxed. And like three sort of categories of severity. And if you make major changes, like changing the chassis, doing an engine swap, then you fall into the sort of red category where they say the vehicle's tax identity is no longer the same as it was of the original vehicle, and therefore you have to pay a new registration tax on that vehicle. Now, I've recently just watched Boris the Defender's chassis swap videos, or the ones that have been uploaded so far of that process. Really enjoyed seeing that, and it's got me very excited for doing this, but I don't get the impression that there was any kind of involvement from the authorities on that. I think it's just in the UK a straight swap. It's just, they consider it like swapping out, if I get a dent in the door and I want to change it for a new one, it's just swapping it out for a like-for-like part. And that's how I would see this. I'm just changing the chassis out for a like-for-like part to keep this vehicle on the road. Denmark doesn't see it that way. They're saying you're changing the identity of the vehicle. I kind of get that in relation to chassis numbers, but it doesn't change the way the vehicle drives or anything like that. It just makes it safer, keeps it on the road for longer. But that's that. And there are some ways, shall we say, to get around this issue of having to pay a new registration tax on a vehicle when you make this change. Whether they fall into a grey area of the law or are just straight up illegal, I don't quite know. And I've spoken to some people about this topic who either know about it or who have done it themselves. And I considered whether that would be an option, a route for me to go down to avoid paying a large sum of money to re-register this vehicle with its new chassis. And after some thought and the consideration that I am posting a series of videos for thousands of people to see on the internet of me doing this swap and not really being able to hide the fact that I've changed the chassis, I will go through the official process to get this Defender back on the road rather than trying to do some slightly dodgy way of getting it through that process. Because I don't want to end up in trouble with the authorities and either end up paying much more money than I would have in fines rather than just doing it properly, or end up with a shiny Defender that's ready to go back on the road and then be told that I can't put it back on Danish roads now because I didn't inform the authorities of the fact that I was changing the chassis or something stupid like that. I can just see that happening in this country. So I don't want to invest all the time and money into this and end up with a big green paperweight with a diesel engine in it. And therefore I'm going to do the process properly. However, that also raised another question for me since you last saw me here on the internet. And that was whether I'm allowed to carry on taking this car apart and putting it onto a new chassis before I have a quote from the authorities on what that new registration tax should be. Because it can take up to 3 months for you to be given that quote. quote once you apply for it. So I didn't want to, again, continue with it and then be told that I was doing something wrong and like be forced to put it back together or something like that. However, they said that I'm free as long as the vehicle is deregistered, which that happened a long time ago, as you may remember. As long as it's deregistered, I'm free to work on the vehicle and continue with the chassis swap before I actually get given the quote for the new registration tax. And I have a rough idea of what it's going to cost, and it's a lot of money. And once I have the quote, and you know, I can reveal it once we do a full breakdown, cost breakdown of this rebuild, I can go through all of that. So it's a lot of money, but it's not also as much as I thought it would be when I found out that you have to apply for a new registration tax. It is what it is. It's the reality of living in this country, unfortunately, and I want to do things properly so that I can drive this vehicle guilt-free and worry-free when it's back on the road, and post videos on the internet without feeling like I'm doing something too shady. But that's the sort of boring paperwork, bureaucracy part of this conversation out of the way. Now, today I want to remove this wing, and then the whole front end effectively is dismantled on this Defender, and I guess in theory we can lift the body off. I make that sound so simple. We can lift the body off and get a top-down view of this chassis, which is the part I'm really looking forward to. That's the next step, I think, in this process. I wish, like Boris the Defender, we could just do this like a straight swap in 3 days like he's done. Unfortunately, I've got to change bulkhead, got to change doors, possibly the seat box. There's more to do on this Defender than there was with Boris, but one step at a time, and we'll get there. So, yeah, gonna grab some tools, drink my tea, move the Jimny, we'll get started. So I'm hoping this will be a quicker exercise than the previous video on the Defender, where we removed the wing on that side and also the whole front end grille section and all the lights. And because we had to do all those extra bits, that was a bigger project than just removing this. So hopefully this will be fairly painless. Of course, going to get the bonnet off first as well. And you may have noticed there's a bungee cord holding it down. There's a little bit of a story to that, because there was one night where we had some very strong winds and I was woken up by the sound of banging. And at first I thought it was roof tiles coming down or something like that. And I went outside only to realize that the bonnet on the Defender was swinging up and down, bashing up against the windscreen. And that's what was making the noise. So I've had to tie it down because of course there's nothing to latch it onto anymore. So I learnt my lesson with that. And I did notice as well just now when I was filming that there's a dent here on the wing, so I suspect that is from the bonnet coming down. But yeah, it is what it is. Learned my lesson. I guess I'm just gonna start undoing things in here and seeing if this gets any looser. That was basically the strategy last time and it worked in the end. So, probably going with that approach again. I actually can't remember what I did on the other side. I think I left this Gwyn Lewis bit in. I don't think that needed to come out. And this, did this come out? I suppose I could just go and look, couldn't I? Let's see. Yep, the bracket and the Gwyn Lewis flappy bit are still in there, so I guess they can stay on this side as well. Okay, and then from here, there's still, that needs to come out for sure, because that's bolted on the other side into the engine bay. I guess anything in the lining probably has to come out, because I want to take off the wing with this skin in here, as we did on the other side. Yep, I'll just go back to my original strategy, undo things until it falls off or becomes loose. Let's continue with that. Yeah, now what? This one? Should we attack this one then? But then I need an arm down in the engine bay. Operation Long Arms. Here we go. Hello. Pretty quickly, it became clear that this bolt wasn't going to come out the easy way. A well-earned, lukewarm cup of tea, now that I got that frickin' bolt out. In the end, I had to use an angle grinder. I think basically I had rounded it off from the other side. Because I started, it got it pretty loose, like not loose, but I mean got it nearly off using the power tool, and then the other side was just rounded off after a while and it just wouldn't budge. I never, ever, ever, ever should have said that getting this wing off should have been quicker than doing everything else that we did last time. So that was, I don't know if you can see it, the back side of that bolt that I just had to cut off. And it is, I'd say, pretty nice and round. I think we just invented the wheel with that. Anyway, here, this lining of the wing started to get a teeny tiny bit of play in it, which is good, which means we're getting somewhere. I'm wondering if I should do this next, because I do remember having to take it off before, and like I said, I can't quite remember why. I don't know if there's something, was it because there was something hidden underneath? I don't know, I feel like I should just take that off. Because actually, I can't see what else is holding it in here. And I've got to differentiate what's the difference between what's holding it to this and what's holding it to the rest of the car. Yeah, I think let's try and get this off. I need to get something to poke these little pins out. And let's see what happens when I get that off. There we go. Ta-da! Now, as I feared, there are bolts going along down here into the bulkhead, just like there was on the other side, which was quite a pain. However, it does look like we can get to them from here more easily than we could on that side, because I think the issue on that side was with the top bolts, you have the heater up here in this corner, which really screwed up access, and that was where you needed to open up the vent and go in that way. But nothing there's nothing that sticks out into that path all the way down on this side, I think. So I think we can just, as long as we can get the socket onto the heads in here, then I think we can get them off. I think that's the main thing that's anchoring it right now. No doubt there'll be little, I can see like some small bits and pieces in here, and then there's wires and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, that's not done up tightly. Well, yes, it did come out. It's down here somewhere now. Gotcha. Oh, wow. Oh, it's interesting that they're not done up tightly. Because on the other side, I know that wing had already been removed at one point because I had this panel replaced. So I just assumed people who put it back together didn't do it up particularly tightly, or at least the top ones, because they're a pain to get to. But these aren't done up tightly either, so maybe they're just not done up tightly from the factory. And now there's one right up at the top, which gave us so much grief last time. If I put the tool here, it's still centimeters away from reaching it with the longest extension. And I probably need a universal joint. I'm gonna take the wheel off. Oops. Holy mother of rust, that looks rough. Okay, that should make that somewhat easier to get in there. I can actually get my hand all the way up to it from here, so I can kind of guide it on. Ish. Oh, that one. That feels like it's going. I'll just get it out with my fingers now, without chopping my hand off. Okay, my watch is stuck. Should have taken that off. There we go. It's still completely... So having removed those, it feels exactly the same. Like, there's absolutely no movement on this area at all. There is a bolt here. Should we do that one? Maybe that makes a difference, because that's also holding it on at the top. That looks pretty small. Maybe a 10. Where is my... If my dad were here, he would be giving me a lesson about keeping your tools organized. Because now I can't find the tool I need. And he's probably watching. Sorry, Dad. Where the oh, it's there. It's because orange on orange. I couldn't see it. There we go. Oh, that's done it. So having just undone these 4 14mm bolts and not seeing any difference, I just undone this 10mm one at the top, and the wing has just kind of gone from the from the bulkhead. It's just sort of unsealed itself. So maybe this was holding it in all along. So I was getting a bit confused because I felt like something was still holding onto it down here. But I just realised this, all it is, I think, it's just this little... I don't know what you call this thing. There's this little mount for the intercooler, which is just attached to this bracket. But obviously, you just lift that up off of it. It's not bolted in or anything. That's what's holding it in there. You can feel the tension on that corner. The rest of it feels very loose now. So that is a case of just lifting it up and off, which we'll do at the end, of course. Here, I know there's something down here. I remember that from last time. There's something down in this corner, which I think is quite accessible. And is that it? Actually feels like that might be it. The chips of rust that I have in my hand here. Unreal. How does this even get up here? Oh, I can't wait to take the body off of this. I cannot wait. I think it's this here. There's a little nut here, which I think I need to remove. Okay, I think I can show you guys on the other side what I'm talking about. So, if I remember correctly, it is, the thing we need to remove is this right here, which is the same on the other side. There's this little arm that sticks out, and then there's a bolt that goes through there. I think that's the bit I'm missing on that corner. Okay. I got very confused there because I just saw a bolt fall down to the ground. But knowing I was still undoing this one, but I realised it's one of the 4 on the side here that just fell down and landed in there. That's what just fell down. I just knocked it out of place. Is it going to just come off? No. Oh, maybe it will. So we've got the windscreen washer bottle here. And then obviously there's going to be wires for the lights. I don't know if there's anything else. Let me see if I can get it off that intercooler mount. Okay, that's off. What I would like to be able to do is just lift it off and like rest it on a bench here or something, so then I can take wires and things off, because I can't really get to them when they're in here. Do I have something? So I just had 20 minutes or so of some alone time to try and figure this out, and I realized that the reason I couldn't pull the wiring through, because it was just getting stuck, was because, of course, the indicator here was plugged in, and the wire for it goes here and then kind of around, because you've got like this dividing wall from the wheel arch liner. So that one wire goes around and plugs in. So I was pulling it through, and of course it was just getting caught on this dividing wall, and because it's just anchored by being plugged into that. So I managed to pull all the wires through. Once I'd figured that out, nice and easy to unplug when I can just go right up into here. And then there was the aerial. I needed to figure out how to do that. I couldn't see like an obvious way to just sort of disconnect it with the way that it's wired in. It's not one of those like all the lights at the front, for example, you just unplug them. But I managed to just sort of lever this like seal out, which sits up here on top. I just used this trim removal tool to just kind of act as a crowbar to lift it out. And once I did that, the aerial just fell out and fell through, so it's hanging down here, still wired in. And then the last thing is the windscreen washer bottle. You can unplug that, so I guess that's part of the wiring is there. But then you've got the actual hoses that, of course, feed the liquid to the rest of the vehicle. And I've just tracked back the hoses to here, right here next to the bulkhead, and it looks like you can just pull them off. It's just sort of a hose going onto like a nipple kind of thing. So I think I can just yank those out, because the windscreen washer bottle is not coming out. The screws for those are just completely rusted, and they just, as soon as you stick something on them, they're so soft that you're just rounding the heads off of them. So that's not going to happen, not without like drilling or cutting or whatever. But I think I can just disconnect the washer bottle and leave it on the wing. So that's what I'm going to do now, is try and disconnect these, and then hopefully I can just lift it away. Oh, ta-da! We did it, people. Yes, it's free. We did it. Look at that. The other side is now exposed. Awesome. So, let me just move the workbench here. So this side is definitely in better shape. Well, better, you know, is obviously a relative term, but it's in better shape than the other one, where we have that collapsed turret. This one is at least still solid, even though it doesn't look like it would have lasted too much longer. And then there is just this dried up mud down here, but also so many little chips of metal, and this is horrible as well. But actually this side, you know, excluding the thing that I had to cut out, this side was actually much simpler than the other one, I would say. Maybe that's just because I actually knew where to look for bits. Like I knew that, for example, there would be 4 bolts down here and stuff like that. Maybe that was just why. But getting to these 4 bolts was a lot easier. We spent so much time on these last time, the bolts that go into the bulkhead, and they were pretty easy this time. Man, this thing really looks like it's been at the bottom of the ocean. I popped the wheel back on so the Defender can stand on its own feet once again, but the goal for this video has been accomplished. That was to remove the wing, and it went relatively smoothly, I think, and now the entire front end of this Defender has been dismantled. And I'm hoping the next step from here is that we lift the rest of the body here up off of the chassis, and then of course begin building things up onto the new chassis. Those are the bits that I'm really, really looking forward to in all of this. Seeing everything that's under here and then putting shiny new bits on the shiny new chassis. So excited for all of that. Plenty more to come with the Defender then, and the Jimny as well, along with some surprises along the way as well. Thank you very much for watching. Hit subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see you in the next video.